Welcome to the Mythic Tavern, and today I am going to be giving you my full preview impressions of World of Warcraft The War Within expansion before its release date. I've had the alpha since April 18th, which was when it actually started, and here in a few days we are going to have the beta. Now, for the most part, everything that I played in the alpha over the weeks is pretty much going to be in the beta at this point, which are all the 4 zones and all the 8 dungeons. The only thing we didn't really get to test in the alpha was the new raid, pretty much. We got to play with delves and, the systems, dynamic flying and all that stuff. And of course, the new questing, the new stories and things like that. And of course, most importantly, hero talents, which is a very big part of the new expansion, where you get to pick kind of like a sub-mini class spec thingy. And yeah, some classes had it good, some classes had it bad, some kind of are still up in the air. So yeah, there you have it. Now, what have I done in the alpha exactly? I've played 2 full zones of the game, or the expansion, which was the Isle of Dorn, which is the first zone that you go into, where the beginning of the story starts, and of course the Ringing Deeps, which is the second zone that you go into. And then I did all of the 8 dungeons. I don't remember all of their 8 names, but there was the Rookery, Stone Vault, the Dark Flame Cleft, what else is there? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, there's a bunch. Priory of the Flame, I think, or something like that. Or Sacred Palace, I forget what it's called. City of Echoes, City of Threads, that's 6. The Dawnbreaker, that's 7, and then I forgot what the 8th one called. Either way, yeah. So I did quite a bit. And I played as a Prot Warrior for the most part, and I did try the Earthen, which is the new race, of course. And you know what, I had a lot of fun, both with the race, with the questing, with the dungeons. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with everything that I played so far, and I thought it was pretty good. Of course, I do have some concerns, and I'm sure a lot of other people do as well. You know, how are the dungeons gonna be at the end game? How's Mythic Plus gonna be? Is the raid any good? Is the conclusion to the story any good? Are all the zones fun, or is it only a few of them? Is there's a good story cohesion? You know, all this stuff, because, for the last few expansions, the WoW story has been all over the fucking place. For obvious reasons. But thankfully, Chris Metzen is back, and with Steve News gone, goodbye, Steve, no one is gonna miss you. I think it's a lot better. I'm not trying to sound mean or unprofessional, but I don't think anyone really missed Steve here. If anything, he was just kind of a thorn in the... on the development team, in my opinion, if you ask me. So yeah, buddy, sorry, but you had to go, and I'm glad that you're gone. But yeah, I know that sounds harsh, but it is what it is. WoW was not doing too well when it came into its lore, and that was because of you. Thank you, Chris Metzen, for coming back. Thank you for trying to fix this mess. I really appreciate it. And so far, what I played in terms of lore, I think it's getting a lot better. We'll see how the rest of the trilogy plays out, but it's pretty nice. At least the beginning is. Anyway. So, where should I begin? Should I talk about the Earthen? Should I talk about the dungeons? Should I talk about the story and the zones? Probably just the leveling itself. So what I like about the War Within compared to previous expansions so far is that when you go in there with a very obvious purpose. The game tells you exactly what's going on. And I mean, previous games kind of did too, or previous expansions. But the problem with a lot of the previous zones and previous expansions was that there were too many side things happening and too many plot holes that were all over the place. What I liked about War Within and playing the Isle of Dorn zone was that it made sense from the very beginning what you came for, what you need to do, and what you're trying to figure out, and where you need to head next. When I was doing the main quest line, I was reading the quest law, what is the quest journal, whatever, the quest text. I know most people don't, but I do because I liked it. I kind of care about the lore in a way, so it's pretty important to me, and and it's quite more, how should I say, more consistent, more contained, instead of being like this one weird, big, massive thing that doesn't make any sense anymore. So that was pretty good. And when you go from quest to quest, everything kind of makes sense, and it's more chronological. And you kind of get your questions answered as you play, as you continue throughout the quest line in each of the zones. And in Isle of Dorn, what impressed me was that how I ended up going to the next zone. And what I mean by that was that when I finished my final quest, I was like, oh, it's taking me to this place now. Okay, cool, where's that at? And it made it seem kind of like, oh, it's probably going to continue here, you know, in the Isle of Dorn. But then as I was going to my next destination, I realized that it was actually taking me to the next zone, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's actually kind of cool. You know, okay, so I guess we're done with the Isle of Dorn as far as the main questline goes. We figured everything out over there, and now we're going over to the Ringing Deeps and figuring out the next thing and talking to, you know, more people or whatnot. And yeah, it felt really good in that way. And I just liked how all the quests that I did, as for the mainline quest, I'm not speaking about the side quests, just felt very complete. You're like, okay, there's a conclusion to this, right? Like, you can see where it's going, and that's good. You know, if anyone remembered something like BFA or Shadowlands, for Christ's fucking sake, man, that shit was terrible. Everything was all over the place. A lot of the stuff just didn't make sense, and it was just like, it was just lore existed for the sake of lore, and new lore came in for the sake of new lore, whatever God knows fucking what. It was terrible. Now, BFA at least kind of had something interesting going on. At first we thought it was about the faction war, but in reality it was about something else. And now there's all this other shit going on with N'Zoth and fucking, you know, Sylvanas and her stupid boyfriend that we haven't seen in forever, which is Nathanos. And then obviously fucking, what is it called, Ashara. And I'm sorry, man, Ashara and N'Zoth deserved their own expansions. The faction war was just a facade. It was bullshit. It was you know, a smoke. It was a fucking lie. It was dumb. Fuck, man. I don't know, Steve the User, what the fuck you were smoking, but it was terrible. Yeah, fuck that shit. Thank you, Chris Benson, for bringing us back to something more grounded, something that makes more sense, and something that I can actually follow through. So, in regards to the storyline and kind of like how the quest progress goes in War Within, I am pretty satisfied, and trust me, I am not a type of a person that's very easy to satisfy. So far so good, but you know, we gotta see the rest of the cards and see how they play out. Now, granted, I didn't finish the other two zones, which was the spider place, I forget the name of it, Ashkahed, I think, and I forgot that really cool zone with a crystal in the middle. I haven't touched that zone at all, and the reason why I haven't touched it is because, I'll be honest with you, I want to kind of save it for myself on retail when it goes live. Yeah, sometimes you kind of don't want to spoil yourself too much, you know, that as a content creator, you get spoiled a lot, and sometimes, you know, you don't really get the cool surprises anymore because you get to play the content so early. So that's kind of the problem with being a content creator, is like a double-edged sword, right? Yeah, you get all this cool stuff now, but then when it actually happens and it's live and it actually matters to play it, you're not as impressed, right? So that's the thing that I kind of gotta suck up and, you know, deal with. But that's fine, that's my problem to deal with, not yours. So, and I'm here to help you guys out and hopefully tell you what my experience was like, and hopefully guide you in the right direction on whether you should purchase the product or if you should continue playing a game or whatnot. So, yeah. I was pretty happy with those two zones in terms of not only the questing, but also in terms of the visuals. In terms of just the quests themselves as two, they're pretty fun. Again, they're easy to follow, and they're actually ended pretty quickly, man. I was surprised. I got the achievement in probably like maybe 2 hours or something. There's only 3 main quest lines that you need to do, or chains. I'm sorry, not quest lines. 3 main quest chains that you need to do in order to get the achievement. In previous expansions, it was like maybe 4 or even actually like 7 or 8 sometimes, depending on the zone. Yeah, so basically what I'm saying here is that War Within seems to be a lot more contained as far as, you know, questing and storyline goes, which is good. That's the way it should be. And there's a quite obvious guideline on how they want you to go throughout the story and which zone they want you to experience first and second, third, and last, or whatever. Some of the previous expansions allowed you to go to any zones that you wanted to start at. While that was kind of cool, it kind of created this very disjointed experience of not really understanding what's happening with the storyline at all. But this is not the case here. It's a lot more easier to follow, and I think that's a good thing. So kudos on that. I'm not going to be giving the game any rating, the expansion any rating, because it's way too early. It's not the full thing. I haven't seen, there's no cinematics in there. They're all locked up, or they're kind of hidden. You know, they put like a giant X mark on the screen because they don't want to spoil it for people, which makes sense. So as far as questing and zones go, I think they did an outstanding job of the 2 zones that I did play, and from what I heard, for the 3rd zone is very, very good too. From other people, they've been praising in terms of visuals and pretty much everything else. Very interesting, cool stuff is happening in the zones. So yeah, if you guys are big into questing and you're big into, you know, zones and visual aesthetics, I think you'll be very happy with War Within when it comes to that. When it finally launches, probably sometime either end of August or beginning of September. That's my personal prediction. So there's that. Now, let's talk about the dungeons. So what's going on with the dungeons? Well, dungeons are a lot shorter, in my opinion. At least they seem to be. Maybe it's because I've been playing Mythic Plus for so long that they feel long. But if you ask me, I feel like the dungeons in Dragonflight, for example, like Nalthalos, right, felt very long. Maybe there's not many bosses in those dungeons, but the amount of running around that you had to do and the amount of mobs that you had to kill was kind of ridiculous in that dungeon, in my opinion. A lot of people also said that Uldaman was very long too, and you know, I am one of the outliers. I think that Uldaman was a great dungeon, but that's because I'm kind of obsessed with Uldaman. I'm a little bit biased. I like the Dwarven and Titanic lore, so it was kind of cool for me. And yeah, but I do agree that Uldaman can be a little bit too long, and I see where the criticism was for that. But if you thought Uldaman was too long, or Naltharis was too long in Dragonflight, well, I'm happy to say that the dungeons in War Within are a lot shorter, or decently amount shorter, maybe not a lot, and they feel a lot more, because there's, I guess, shorter or quicker experiences. They're like, okay, I can kind of go in and go out and get my reward quickly, or get this dungeon, you know, done quickly, and feel pretty good about it. The bosses are fun. The dungeons themselves, in terms of layouts, are pretty good. There's maybe like one longer dungeon than other ones, but yeah. Listen, compared to like Dragonflight, all the 8 Dragonflight dungeons, War Within completely like shits all over it. It's just so much better, dude. Way better dungeons, way better dungeons. In my one of my favorite dungeons is the Cinderbrew Meadery. It's a very short dungeon. You walk in, and you guys, if you want to see all the dungeons, I have them on the channel here. You guys can check them out with the commentary. I talk about the bosses, I talk about the pulls, I talk about the mobs and things like that. So I have all the tour guides there, and I did one of the dungeons of Tally, which I thought was kind of fun and pretty cool. So guys, yeah, check that out on the channel here. There's a whole playlist dedicated to the dungeons. Anyway, the Cinderbrew Meadery, you kind of walk in, you know, it's kind of like a very tavern-esque setting. It reminded me a little bit of Vanilla WoW, actually, in a way, because it was such a interesting, I don't know, aesthetically, just speaking, it just kind of reminded me of Vanilla WoW for some reason, obviously with better visuals, but it was pretty cool in terms of that. It kind of felt nostalgic. You know, you walk in, there's a bunch of bar matrons, and there's a boss, like, right in front of you at the bar, and you gotta clear the whole room, and mobs over there's not that many, and then you have a wing to the left, wing to the right, you know, all that good stuff, and you can go to any of the wings, or you can just go fight the first boss that's right in front of you, and do that, and then you fight the first boss that's in front of you. The fight is pretty cool, it's pretty easy. I'm not gonna go into details of it, you guys can see the video for it on the channel if you want to see the full thing, but basically, you do that fight, so then you can go either to wing on the left or right. You go over there and do the fights over there, and they're not that long runs either, they're pretty short wings. They're very linear. There's no real, oh, I can kind of skip this whole pack. I'm sure there will be maybe some skippable stuff, like in terms of like a corner, you might be able to skip them if you kind of hug the corners and stuff. But, you know, that depends on how Mythic Plus goes and the amount of mob requirement you're going to need. That's all subject to play and subject to change. So I can't speak for that. My point is that the dungeons are very linear, so there's not going to be anything complicated in terms of pathing, something like Brackenhide Hollow, right? Like, you look at a dungeon like Brackenhide Hollow, which, by the way, I did enjoy. It was a very unique dungeon. Its way was very open. And, you know, the beginning of it, you had to save the 5 Tuskar from the cages. So there was, pathing was a little bit weird, right? You kind of could go anywhere. But obviously on Mythic Plus now, thanks to Wowhead, thanks to the community, you know, all the hardcore Mythic Plus players, they already figured out all those routes, and people follow those routes anyway. But still, that dungeon was very open, so you kind of had multiple ways to go through, right? But in these dungeons, especially Cinderbrew Meadery or even the Rookery, very linear dungeons, man, with not much ability or not much opportunity to skip stuff. Rookery actually has some skips that you could do at the end, depending again on the mob density. But again, they're very easy to follow. There's no weird, oh, should I pull this or not? You just pull it and you just keep going until you hit the boss. And the most important thing is that the bosses are fun. They're good. They're fun to fight. You know, yeah. And I think Dragonflight had pretty good bosses too. But in my opinion, I think War Within bosses are more fun. So that's just me. The Rookery was also great. It's basically Dwarven Titan lore mixed in with Void. Very cool stuff. You know, Void Titanic. Earthen dwarves that you get to fight, and then, you know, Dark Flame Cleft is very old school for me. It's very vanilla-esque because you go into this mine and you fight a bunch of kobolds, and there's a cool mechanic in there. You know, you need to carry a candle with you at the end to go through this thing with a minecart. Now, some people didn't like that, some people did. We'll have to see how it is tuned up in the beta and the final game. And in the Mythic Plus, most importantly. But yeah, so it's cool to see Blizzard playing with new mechanics and things like that. But yeah, getting to fight kobolds as bosses for a Mythic Plus is something that I never thought I'd ever see the light of day, which I think is great, man. It's very vanilla-esque, very nostalgic, and the dungeon itself was just pretty good, man. At first I kind of didn't like it, but then I played it again, and I was like, okay, you know what, it's not that bad. Yeah, it's a pretty good dungeon, again, good bosses, easy to follow. Nothing too crazy, and the last quarter of the dungeon is very unique compared to everything else that you've played in the past. So you will either like it or you don't, or you might be indifferent about it. But we'll see how it goes. Let me know in the comments once you do play it on the beta, if you're seeing this video. So there's that. Yeah, so far, I mean, I really don't have much to complain about dungeons. I think the length is good. I think they're fun. They're interesting from a lore perspective as well. And yeah, there's something for everybody, I guess. But most importantly is that they're just not, they don't feel as tedious as some of the Dragonflight dungeons did, like Nakud or, you know, Brackenhide Hollow, Uldaman, and Nelthalos. I think those were the worst offenders when it came to something tedious. And don't get me started on Holes in Infusion. That was fucking... It's not a terrible dungeon, man, but oh my god, the amount of walking in that place takes forever, and the checkpoints were fucking terrible, dude. Holy shit, I hated that place in Mythic Plus because of those stupid checkpoints. You guys know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I think if you're a Mythic Plus player like me, you're in for a big treat. Again, we'll have to see how Mythic Plus plays out. But based on what I played on normal, and I tanked all the dungeons as a Mountain Thane Prot Warrior. Mountain Thane is the new hero spec for a Prot Warrior as a tank, and I think you can also be that as an Arms Warrior too, as well. I think that goes into Arms, I'm not sure. But either way, Mountain Thane was a lot of fun. I think it's a really good hero spec tree. I cannot really speak for other warrior spec trees because I haven't really played them. I don't play really DPS warrior, and I haven't really bothered to test it. I'm just gonna be honest with you. So if you're looking for a review or a preview of hero talents, I am not really your guy. Yeah, I'm not really for that. I'm more about the dungeons, the world of the game, and things like that. But if you want to talk about Mountain Thane itself, then yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was a pretty good tree. I could probably make a video on that. If you want me to speak specifically about that tree, since I did play it, and that's kind of the only class that I play besides Hunter. By the way, I did try out some of the hero talents for Hunters, and they are absolutely trash tier, and Blizzard is not doing anything about them. I'm not sure why. So I haven't touched them since then, and there's really nothing to talk about other than the fact that they're bland, boring, and just fucking terrible. Yeah, so there's that for Hunters. And if you ask the general consensus of Hunters in War Within, it's really fucking bad. I'm not sure what's going on with Hunters in War Within, but that's a big boo-boo that they need to fix soon, hopefully, or at least before the expansion releases. So there's that. But yeah, dungeons are very good. Shorter, funner, more interesting, cool, aesthetically, visually pleasing, and not that complicated to you know, route. Again, questing is excellent. Of the two zones that I played, I think you guys will have a lot of fun with it. Mountain Thane, as I said, is pretty good. I think it's one of the better designed hero talent trees, at least for Warrior. If you like to play or fantasize about being a Thor in World of Warcraft, then this is it. You get to wield a shield, one-handed weapon, and you get to thunderclap a lot and see a lot of lightning strikes. And you get to grow extra big as Avatar. Very cool stuff. Definitely a very good hero talent, talent tree spec. So I think Blizzard did good on that, and I think Prot Warriors will be happy. But of course, we have to see how the Mythic Plus plays out and who is the best tank. I'm not really a person for that. That's more of a Dratnos thing and what's his face? dorky thing. You know, they tank a lot of stuff. They will probably give you a better opinion on that, on the tank spec when it comes to Mythic Plus than I will, because I'm not really a super hardcore player like they are. I would say I'm above average, but I'm not like I'm definitely above average, but I'm not a filthy casual, but I'm not really either an incredible super hardcore duper good top region player or anything like that. You know, I enjoy what I play, and I try to be as competitive as I can be. But that's about it. I'm not gonna sit here and brag and tell you people I'm the best, because I'm really not. But I'm not the worst either. So I'm just kind of like in the middle, you know. So take that as you will. Just being honest with you. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and gloat and tell you that I'm better than somebody else when I'm just not. There are other better people out there for resources like that if you want to know what's going on with the tanks. But as what I played so far, I've enjoyed my Prot Warrior, so there's that. And I think Mountain Thane is pretty cool. Yeah, pretty good stuff, man. Of course, I tried out the Delves as well. I think they're okay. Again, Delves are something that you really need to test at the end game. And unfortunately, we don't have access to the end game really, just because we don't, not yet. They will probably give it to us in the beta, so the impressions on that are gonna have to wait for a little bit longer. But yeah, you know, there's that. I really can't talk much about Delves. If you want to see what's going on with Delves or my initial impressions of it, there is a video. You guys can click up above over there. I have left a card for you. You guys can check that out. I do commentary on that as well. And the dungeons, as I said. And yeah, so there's that. So those are my impressions so far for The War Within. I enjoyed a lot of what I played. I think the overall premise of it, storyline, is a lot more interesting than Dragonflight. I like the zones already a lot more than Dragonflight, or honestly any previous expansions, so there's that. The plot line seems to be a lot more cohesive and a lot more contained, which is good and easier to follow, and things make sense. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to look forward to, and a lot of cool hints that they throw out, and you know, shadow drop and whatnot, or foreshadow I should say. Dungeons, as I said, are excellent. It's very rare for me to complain about, to not complain about dungeons. I was actually genuinely shocked at how good all of the dungeons are, because usually you'll have that one or two dungeons that are fucking terrible. Dragonflight had a lot of terrible dungeons. I hated Nakud. I couldn't stand that dungeon. It was fucking awful. There is a dungeon in War Within that's kind of similar to Nakud, but it's nowhere near as annoying as Nakud, and it's actually a lot better than Nakud. And it does have flying in the dungeon on your mount with dragon flying, but it's a lot shorter, it's a lot easier, and it's not as annoying or stupid, and it's just better. The dungeon is called Dawnbreaker. That is sadly the only dungeon that I didn't record and put up on YouTube. I probably will record it and put it on YouTube if you guys want to see it. But yeah, if you you can just type it in and watch it from somebody else. But the other 7 dungeons are available on the channel here. So there's that. Yeah, man, those are my impressions of The War Within. If you guys have any questions, particularly to the quests, dungeons, or lore, or something like that. Now, I'm not super crazy known with lore, but you know, I can try to answer a few things with what I can. But yeah, so far I would say that if I had to, I'm not gonna give the game a rating, as I said, but so far I'm looking at like a good a solid B+, between a B+ and an A, maybe a rating for of what I played so far. I have to play the rest of the you know, the zones out, and try out the rest of the hero specs, or at least hopefully have the counter be good with hero talents, you know, in order for me to actually go up in rating, or you know, like for that kind of stuff. You know, in order for this expansion to receive a really high rating, it needs to have excellent, like everything. You know, right now we have excellent dungeons and excellent zones. Delves are still to be questioned, and of course raid is still to be questioned, and the rest of the hero talents are still to be questioned, and we're still in alpha going into beta now here this week. So it's gonna take some time, but there is that. And of course, once we get near the full product release with a release date, and I've played and done everything that there's possibly to do on the beta, once they unlock everything and let us do everything on the beta, then I can give you a full product review and kind of like a thing before it comes out. But for now, this is what I got. So thank you so much guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, feel free in the comments. I will answer every single one of them if I can. Peace out guys, and have a good one.